And in an instant, I lost everything.
Welcome to the Lips and Language podcast. My name is Cola, where we talk about life, love, and language. Remember to subscribe, like, and share. Let's get into today's topic.
Hey y'all, welcome. Today we're going to talk about loss as we're continuing on this trend. But today we're talking about the loss of my home. I think when we often talk about loss and grief, we always associate it with a person. And now that is sad when you lose people, but it's also sad when you lose objects, when you lose things that had meaning to you, had a value to you. And it's not that we worship these things at all, right? But if you've never lost a home before, if you've never lost somewhere to stay, then you don't know what it feels like to have the thing that you felt secure in completely taken from you. So let's take it back to 2014 when my son had just passed. And at the time when I was taking care of my son, I was on welfare. And that was mainly because he had so many different appointments, physiotherapy, speech therapy, all these different things to do with the doctors that also like with school, if anything happened, I needed to be available. And there was no fitting in an 8 to 4 with his school schedule at the time. Like there wasn't a way that I found a job that made sense. And unfortunately, back then, the way the government was set up, for me to have to get a job and pay for babysitting slash daycare or whatever, it was going to cost me a lot more than if I just stayed on welfare, made myself available for him. If the school called me at any point, if I needed to pick him up because he was too tired or whatever the case is, I was available. And there was money coming in. That wasn't a whole lot, no, but it was enough to sustain. And so I had made the decision just to be a stay-at-home mom at the time after I had finished university. So I was in university the whole time. And then when I transitioned out of university, before I could figure out what to do, I was like, well, I'm just going to take care of him. As well, because at that time he was transitioning a little bit where he was walking, but he was getting a little bit more tired. And so before he was able to walk longer distances. And at that point, when I had made the decision to stay home with him, he needed like a stroller or a wheelchair because he was just getting a little bit more tired. So, in all of those decisions, when he passed, I was on welfare. I was on the family plan. And somehow, there was a glitch in the system right after he passed where they switched me from family to single. And what that meant was the money that was coming in that was able to cover my rent essentially was no longer available. So I didn't have enough to cover my rent. I only had my rent was like a 1,130 at the moment, and they had given me like $700. That's how much the single living allowance was. So it was way less than what my rent even was. And so I had no way to pay rent after my son passed. So I went to my landlord. Luckily, I had a good relationship with them, and I was living in charter housing at the time, so I had a great relationship because when I lived up in the West, I was the tenant rep from my area, and so when I moved down to downtown, I wasn't the tenant rep, but I still had a great relationship with the super and the people, and they knew my son, and so building great relationships is really important. That is something that stays with you. Building the right relationships with the right people around you, it will really come in handy. In this instant, I spoke to the lady and I was like, listen, my son passed and they cut my check. I don't have enough money to pay for rent. And so instead of charging me a penalty for breaking my lease, they let me go. They let me come out of it. The only catch was I had to be out at the end of the month. Now my friend had wanted to take me to Bermuda to just get my mind off of things. And so by the time I got back from Bermuda, I really only had 2 weeks to get my whole life together.
Did you know that ignoring your self-awareness will keep you stuck and emotionally imprisoned? Man, we go through life with this hustle mentality, going, never taking a moment to stop, to breathe, until life kind of just spirals out of control. But it is time to take control. It is time to experience the freedom of your most authentic self. And I have a gift for you. I have witnessed the tears, the happiness, the joy, the transformation when I have done this workshop in jail, in colleges, in high schools. And I want to offer this to you. So Click the link below, get access to the free mini course. There's 4 videos. You are going to enjoy it. And let's get to the other side of healing, because you deserve to show up authentically as you. Now, if you heard the poem I released this week, it talks about this transition of only having 2 weeks to pack up everything, only having 2 weeks to go through his room, go through my room, everything we had accumulated for, I think at that point it had been 6 years living in Toronto, from uptown to downtown, everything we had accumulated, I now had to pack it up. And I had actually just gotten him a brand new bed, and the bed, it was a Cars bed, like, because he loves cars. And so we had just gotten him switched out the bunk bed that he had, and the bed was in the shape of a car. We had just got all that put in, and now I had to put it somewhere. I couldn't take it with me. Now, because of the state of the relationship with my parents at the time, I didn't feel comfortable going home. I didn't feel like I had a place there. And so I had 3 different people who had offered me a place to stay, one being a friend of, well, they're all friends of mine, but one being my godmother's mother, and the other 2 were other people in the who are going on the journey with me. And so I really had to make a choice really quickly of where I was going to end up, because I didn't have much time. Like, when I say the decision was taken from me, like, a lot of the decision making, I didn't have the time to process anything that was happening. I really just had to say, okay, we're going to give this away. I told people, hey, come, if you have cousins, if you have nephews, if you have kids that you know of, come take the stuff, because I can't take it with me and I don't want it to go to waste. And so I was telling people to come grab my son's stuff, and, like, sometimes after, like, you'll see this in movies, like, sometimes after somebody passes, years later, the room is still the same. The people haven't touched the room, they haven't gone in, they haven't done nothing. Well, I wasn't afforded that opportunity. And at the time, it really seemed really bittersweet. But now that I look back at it, I'm like, you know what? It's probably a good thing that I didn't stay in stagnation. Like, I didn't stay stuck with a room with my son's stuff in it. Like, I really just had to, like, put stuff in storage, because I couldn't take everything with me. What I could take, I only took, like, the really important things, and I put everything else in storage. Now, I did have a bed, but I don't remember what I did with the bed. I think I put the bed in storage. Actually, yes, I put the bed in storage because I believe the room wasn't, it was a decent sized room, but I think the bed would have taken up all the room. And so what I opted to do, or what I felt needed to be done, was I had a sectional. And so oftentimes my sister and I, we would fall, like, this sectional was a sectional of all sectionals. Like, shout out to the break, because this one, the minute you sit in it, you fall asleep. And it was just like such a place of comfort. This sectional had gone with me from all of my houses. So, like, when I was up west, I bought that there. When I moved downtown, it came with me. And now when I moved to my friend's house, this sectional came with me. And when I eventually moved back to my parents' house, this sectional came with me. And we recently just got rid of it, like, last year. But from 2011 up until 2023, it was with me. And so I slept on one side of it. So one half of my couch is what I slept on during the time that I was at my friend's house, to give more space in the room, to allow things to allow me to bring a little bit more things, even though most of it had to go in storage, and I was paying storage fees and whatnot. But I want to talk about the loss of losing my house, because we don't talk about that. It's almost like, well, at least you had somewhere to stay, yes, but I didn't get a chance to process the fact that in a matter of 2 weeks, the place that I had called home, the place that I had designed, the extension of me was gone. I used to have, I had a wall. It was all the pictures. I decorated all the pictures that, of my son and us over the years. I had dedicated a wall just for pictures. And I had painted, I had decorated, I had put my spin on this house. I didn't just live, sometimes people live in an apartment, and for them, they're like, oh, well, I'm not going to be here long. Or, there's all those stipulations in the rent and in the agreement that you can't really make too much modifications. When I moved to this space, I wanted it to be mine. I wanted to feel like it was mine, especially because, if you read my memoir, you understand that I went through a whole season, a whole thing with roaches.
and with all these other things happening in the house, that by the time we had gotten clear of all of that, I really wanted a space for me. I really wanted a space for my son. I really wanted a space that was not reminiscent of all the trials and all the tribulations, all the heartache we had gone through. I wanted something that was joyful, that was airy, that was filled with laughter, that was beautiful. And so I took the time and put the energy into creating that. And in an instant, it was all gone. In an instant, everything that I had designed and decorated and painted was gone. Everything that I had used to identify myself or used to feel secure was taken, was no longer that. I no longer had the ability to walk into my own space. And it's not that living with people is a bad thing, but if you lived on your own for quite a bit, you value your peace. You value just coming home, doing what you got to do, walking in the house however you want to walk, sleeping, listening to music. Like, you value having that space be yours, not having to share it with nobody. And all of a sudden, I went from just sharing with my son, who was super cool, to now sharing it with my friend and her daughter. And that was a challenge for me because I feel like I lost my security. I feel like my freedom, although she was super generous in offering, it felt like my freedom was being taken and I couldn't even get a moment to mourn or to say anything about it. Because the minute you say, man, this is kind of challenging, people are like, well, suck it up. At least you got something. They always try to force you to look on the brighter side. And I'm like, I never said that I wasn't grateful. What I said was, this is a challenging situation that I'm dealing with. This is a challenging thing that I'm growing through, that I'm learning how to navigate. And not just that, my environment, I lived in the west downtown core of Toronto. And so I was able to go to my local market to get fresh food, walk home, right? I knew where everything was. I could take the bus or we call it, oh Lord, I've been in Toronto for so long. The streetcar. Thank you, Holy Spirit. Like, I knew what grocery stores to go to. I was in walking distance of a lot of things. I knew the places that my son liked. And also I was in a lot of arts programs that were around my area because as an artist, as a poet, as a playwright, all of my art communities, I was in the hub of it. And all of a sudden I moved out east. Not as east as I am now, but east of all the things that I built up. And so all my communities, all of a sudden, I didn't have those no more. Where it was easy to jump on a bus or a streetcar, now this bus took like 30 minutes to get me to where I needed to go. Where I had never really done grocery shopping on a bus before. I used to either drive, and then when I stopped driving, I would take a taxi because of my son. Or where I lived, I was so close that if there's something that I needed, I would just walk, go get it, and come back. And now all of a sudden, I have to be taking the bus because the taxi is too far. Like, it just costs too much money to do that. Like everything changed. Everything changed. My surroundings, my everything changed. And it was hard. That was around that time that I had the last suicidal thoughts and attempts was around that time because it was too much, or it felt like too much. It clearly was enough for me to handle, I guess, because I'm still here, but like at the time, it was too much to bear. It's one thing losing your kid. That's a whole other thing. But I lost my child, I lost my house, I lost my finances, all at the same time, within the span of like a month. And what a lot of people told me to do was just be grateful. Get a job. Figure it out. They didn't put enough care into how it destroyed me, how it changed me as a person, and how it really like set me in this mind state of just like not fully understanding why all of this was happening. Like, what did I do? What did I do that everything's being taken from me? What did I do that life is treating me this way. Life, at that point, I was like, life had already done a lot to me. Life had already kicked me, had already screwed me, had already fought me. And at that moment, it was like life was trying to take the very breath inside of me. And I didn't know how to cope with that loss. I didn't know how to manage it. And so I kind of just like pushed it to the side, tried to do what everyone said and just be grateful, get a job, and just continue on. But what happened was when you don't deal with life, life will deal with you. And life dealt with me. I got a job in, I think I moved into September. I got a job by October because I was doing what society said I should do. And by November, the panic attacks, the gallstone attacks, the every attack, my body fought me in such a physical way because I wasn't dealing with the emotional. I wasn't dealing with the mental. I was literally just trying to push it aside and get through life and just try to stay alive. And the very breath inside my body was now being threatened. Those are some of the darkest days that I've been through. Some. We don't often look at grief or loss as something to work through. People either hide it, push it down, or try to numb the pain through alcohol, through sex, through drugs, whatever else. Like during that time, there was no numbing. I already felt dead. What other numbing could I do? I didn't want no dick. That was for certain. I wasn't on my own anyways, but that was for certain. I didn't want that anymore. Like I had gotten to a place where I was just so sick of it. Like I was just so over it. It wasn't helping me. I wasn't much for alcohol. I didn't like the taste of it. I never smoked weed. And so I really was just left with my thoughts. I really was just left by myself to figure this thing out. And there's a line I say in the poem where I said, all I had is a prayer on my lips and a heart full of songs. And so that's the time when I didn't even pray for real, for real. I would just say, Jesus, help me. But I stayed in music. I had a lot of music playing around me to try to like keep me going. Um, because at that moment, music was the only thing that transcended everything. Music was the only thing that could speak to my heart and mind simultaneously, make me feel okay, and let my brain just like not think about everything happening, right? Because when I'm listening to music, then it's interrupting my thoughts. I don't have to focus on the fact that I felt alone, that I fact that if I wanted something out of my storage unit, I have to go get to my storage unit. Everything was like a good part of me was locked up. The rest of it, I just gave away. I gave away pieces of me to other people, and I'm grateful. I'm a giver. I'm always the type to give, but it wasn't even like I really processed the giving. It was like I gotta go. I need to get rid of this stuff, and so I gotta give it away. And so in that, there was a lot of things that was robbed from me, a lot of opportunities, a lot of moments that I wish, um, no, not wish. Looking back now, I'm like, I should have taken more time to process. I should have taken more time to understand how I feel and to be okay with the fact that I had lost things, objects, and some of them were more than just objects. Some of them were memories that I created that, or like when the light would hit, I had a balcony and I love natural light, and the light would hit in a certain way when I laid on the couch and it would just be so peaceful and warm. I miss those moments. And I didn't allow myself the opportunity to miss those moments, right? I didn't allow myself to look at the place on a whole and see what God created, the table where we would have dinners at. The place, like I said, the place was covered in roaches, and God turned it around and it was beautiful. It's like when I walked in the place, I never saw the roaches, but when I walked in the place, before I even had the furniture, I knew what that place was. I could see every potential of what that place was going to be. I said, a table's going. I bought a table without measuring the space because I said the table's going to fit here and it's going to be perfect. I bought an entertainment set. I said it's going to frame the way the living room is. Like I bought every piece of furniture I bought for that house. I bought just visually seeing it and eyeing what it would look like in that space. Now, a lot of it I was able to bring to my parents' house, and over time I was able to feel free to just give those away. But in the moment, a lot of things I just didn't manage that season well because I didn't know how to. I was learning on the fly. I was learning off of what I now know God is teaching me, because back then I didn't have the right voices telling me how to do things, telling me how to maneuver this way or that way, right? Which is why I'm doing this conversation, so that you don't have to go through what I went through. Take the time to process things. Don't get stuck. Like I said, the one thing I do appreciate is because I only had 2 weeks, I didn't get stuck in, do I want to keep this? Do I not? What I do with this? What I do with that? You know what I'm saying? And I really did give it to people who, they were deserving of it. Like people who, it mattered to them. It was special to them. People who didn't care that it was clothing from a kid who died, or you know what I'm saying, stuffed animals from a child who passed. Like, and the most important things, like my son's cars, like his actual cars that he got, I was able to keep those with me. I was able to keep the memories and some of those other things, and I'll always remember that place for what it was. I always remember that place for the happiness, for the laughter, for the whatnot. And so when we think of loss, the loss of a space, the loss of my surroundings, the loss of something that was important to me, as I'm going through it now, I put a lot of energy into identifying with all those things. I put a lot of energy into making that space be everything that I could control, because sometimes I feel like I couldn't control life. And what I would tell to that person, myself, my younger self, and for anybody listening, don't be so stuck on objects that if you had to lose it, and that if it went away, that your whole life would be over. It's okay to love things. It's okay to take value in things. It's okay to steward over things nicely. But don't be so attached to it that it becomes your idol. Don't be so attached to it that it is the only thing you can think of, that like if you lost it today, you're like, my life is done, because it's not. There is life after loss. There is life after loss of death. There is life after loss of a home. There's life after the loss of your mind. There is life after loss. It just takes processing and decision making. Not time, like people say, because time could pass and you'd be in the same place if you don't make the decision to do something differently, to do something better. I needed to process what was happening, and I didn't allow myself to process. And because I didn't process, that's why everything felt like it was falling over all at once. But God, He is restoring. Now it's taken some years, but He is restoring. His word does not fail. It doesn't always happen the way we want or how we want, but it will happen, and it does happen. And I think that's the beautiful thing of building a relationship with someone outside of ourselves, somebody who actually is in control, actually does know the destiny, does know the beginning from the end. There's so many things that I didn't know and I still know to this day. But when I take one step forward, I know that I am working and trusting in the one who knows. I'm working and trusting in the one who loves, the one who cares, and the one who will restore everything. And so don't get caught up in the loss. Find the joy, but not forcefully, not how everyone says, oh, be grateful. Like, find the joy in the little things around you and hold on to that. Let that be a seed. When you water it, it will grow. And eventually, when you look back, your whole life will become bright. So that's what I got for y'all today on this conversation of loss of things that we didn't even know we were attached to until it's ripped away. Then all of a sudden, life looks glim and bleak, but it's not. If you haven't heard the poem, listen to the poem, because it really is a condensed understanding of what it is to be attached to things. And make sure you check out the outro. You're going to want to hear it. I got good information. It's a really good program. So listen to the outro. Until next time, I love you. Be safe, love yourself, and keep pushing.
What would it look like if we were a people that were healed? What would it look like if we were people that believed in doing the work necessary to remove trauma, to get through grief, and to come out on the other side? Man, we think that therapy is the only way. Therapy is a great way, but there's also a creative way that can help us get through this process. My name is Kola. I am an amazing artist, and I have a program called Restore and Embrace Myself. It is all about the healing and the getting through and the getting over. And if nobody told you, you are special and you are so deserving of so much more in this world. So get in contact with me because I'd love to work with you.